Good morning, and welcome to the studio of Opening the Door to the Unknown. I'm your host, Dr. Clark Schmidt, or Magus 100. Well, I thought this morning I would talk just a little bit about Roswell. Not too much, but just a little bit, because, like I said, is that there has been too many books written on the subject, and since there's been so many books written on the subject, I do feel, as I have said in chapter 2 and also chapter 1, is that it's a dead, to me, to my way of thinking, it's a dead cell. And being a dead cell, I just don't really want to talk about the history of it. But I thought that I would bring up some points that might be interesting to you, because Roswell, I feel, is one of the most unusual UFO cases in the annuals of UFOlogy, ufology. And I do believe is that there might have been a few things left out um, with with it. I mean, like when you have writers writing a book or writers writing books on a particular subject, sometimes they don't add a few pertinent pertinent items. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to add a few pertinent items on Roswell, and I'll definitely close the chapter on that. So um, get let me get into it. All right. There was some 1947, well, again, was another year for major flaps in the United States and also in other countries. Um, but these particular flaps, excuse me, but excuse me again. But these particular flaps were mostly hitting on military bases around the country, and I will be giving the dates and the month um, when these when these sightings had occurred. Now, let's see. There were so many sightings in '47 that I could say that the sightings just doubled from one a day to two a day, and even three a day. Um, like I said, um, in the near military bases. But I would have to say is that they say is that Kenneth Arnold was actually the first one that actually had a sighting of seven saucers when he was flying near Mount Rainier. And in fact, it's well known that Kenneth Arnold called them flying saucers because as he explained to the military investigators and also with the FBI, is that they look like the objects look like saucer shaped. Yeah, saucer being saucer shaped. Okay, and so that's where the term flying. So that's where the term flying saucer um, originated from through Kenneth Arnold. Now that was on with Kenneth Arnold. That was on the. Oh my. Where do I have it here? That was in July or June. June or July of 47. But as not to digress, to get back to Roswell a little bit, right? Is that on June 28th, 1947? Um, there was a major sighting at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. Now that was on uh, June the 28th. On July the 2nd was actually the first sighting of a saucer in Roswell proper, and the person who made the report was a pharmacist named Daniel Walmart. His wife and son Paul were at home in downtown Roswell, and they said they saw a fireball coming from the southeast, um, directly overhead their home, and it went towards it continued moving towards and vanishing over what they called was over 6 Mile Mountain. Sometimes I can't read my writing. All right. Then on July the 3rd is when the crash was when Max Brazel found the debris um, in the field or on the land that he was as foreman for. I forget the name of I can't remember the name of the rancher, but anyways, is that this is when Brazel, like I said, was taking cattle out to graze, and here all this debris was, and even the cattle were afraid to cross over to get to a pond, a pond as to drink, because the cattle was so frightened of what was in the field itself. Now, when Brazel took pieces out of town, and he was going to go to the local radio station, this is where it became, well, how should I say, a little hairy. This is where the Roswell Army Air Corps Base personnel, especially with Jesse Marcel, went out to investigate with another officer who was a lieutenant who was CIC, and before long is that all hell broke loose, especially like in Washington, to where General Twining, who was commanding officer, had sent retrieval, what he at that time was called a retrieval team, to go and collect all evidence from the field, which means is they wanted to have begin now to have a cover up, okay. But by that time, is that the local newspaper had written an art, had written an article through the not the communication center at the base, but through the information through the information officer of the base, and all of a sudden with the interview with Brazel at the local radio station. But now here the government had to quickly, and I do mean quickly, have a lockdown on the situation, which they did. Okay, which they did through the administering of General Twining, sending out the retrieval team to go and lock down the field. Even the local sheriff could not get on property. Is that they even stopped him, and the officer of the lockdown team, said it was top secret, situation, and this is right after World War II, so naturally everybody was still in that patriotic mode of that's sort of, oh, the military just said is, are you still patriotic? Yada. As being patriotic, we do not talk. You do not talk about things as this because of the enemy. Even though the war was over, but at the same time, we were starting to move into slowly the Cold War with Russia. Now you got to remember is that General Patton wanted to start an incident with the Russians as to mobilize the Fifth Army in Germany, and he said is, hey, I'll start the goddamn thing, and I'll end the goddamn thing with the Russians, because if we don't do it now, we're always going to have problems later on down the line. And naturally, he was right as we started to move from 47, 48, 49, getting into the early 50s with with Eisenhower and Khrushchev. And what did Khrushchev say at the UN as he's pounding his shoe? He's saying is, I'm going to bury you. I'm going to bury your ass, man. And he I don't know if it was more theatrics what he was doing at the UN with the General Assembly, or if he just meant, or if he actually meant it. But anyways, is that's how it went. Is that if the military asked for God and country, you just don't say anything, because you didn't want the enemy, they did not want the enemy to give information to the enemy to take back to back to their country, to give that information to their leaders to use against us. All right, so this is the reason why they stopped Brazel, to change his mind. When they had him arrested and interrogated him for 3 days, is that, hey, keep your mouth shut. It's for security. It's for national security. Yada yada yada. And they even bribed, and supposedly they even bribed Brazel to keep his mouth shut. But at the same time as they were working on Brazel, the whole town, you got to remember, is that a town like Roswell, as big as it was, is that rumors go like wildfire, and everybody in town, after reading the paper by what was by the what was given from the information officer from the base, and also with the radio station that had already had the interview with Brazil, is that everybody knew it. And that's the way it works in a small town. I know, I lived in a small town, and rumors can spread, wow, bam, just that quick. It can come from a store, can come from a bar, it can come from neighbors. It makes no difference where the rumor started, but anyways, it's like wham. People are calling, and you got the party lines and the whole nine yards. So here the military, even though is that they were out there trying to clean up the mess from the crash site, with the crash site, they were trying to stop the townspeople from, yak, 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 yak. Okay? And they did the best that they could. And all you had to do was just threaten them, like the mafia. Hey, you don't give us the money, for the vig, is that you're gonna be out in the desert, and nobody will ever find you again. And I really don't think is that, even though the retrieval team threatened in that sense to the townspeople, I don't think is that they really would have made people, in that sense, disappear. Again, it was just a scare tactic to keep the people from yakking, yakking, yakking. Okay. Now, how did it happen? How did it happen for this UFO to crash where it did? And actually, it didn't. In fact, it was believed is that there was two crashes, and how that came about is that, like I said, 47 was a major flap year. I mean, once I start reading, especially around the military bases around the United States, is that it's just like. I'll give a particular highway, major highway like Route 66, or I don't know what's in California, US 1, I think it is, or something like that, to where or even even in Los Angeles, where the traffic is heavy, you're going to have a major accident because somebody makes a mistake, and all of a sudden, bam! All of a sudden, there it is. One car smashes into another car. Well, it was believed because of so much activity with UFOs, is that especially on. Remember, I said on the here it is. On July the 2nd, is that people were seeing were in Roswell proper, is that people were, there was a sighting. So that was on the 2nd. Then what happened on the 3rd? Boom, there was the crash in the field, where the retrieval team was mopping up. Was mopping up. So it was like, hey man, come on. So there was actually two crashes, one in outside of Roswell, and also another place called Aztec, New Mexico, and also Aztec, New Mexico. And this is where they actually found more of the bodies, the bodies that they found in outside of Roswell, and also the bodies over in Aztec. But So that's so, but they said it, but anyways, is that the saucer that crashed in Roswell was like about 30 miles further. But, you know, the way that it was believed is that the saucer was moving so damn fast that when it came down like this, it like skidded until it stopped. And then all of a sudden, boom, you had the pieces all. I mean, like it just everything just went. I mean, just disintegrated. You might say with it. Um, but like I said, after all these years, is like I said, with all the research that has been done uh, with Roswell, a lot, people have either forgotten because of memory, or people have died. And that's what the government was hoping would happen, and that's what the government was hoping that would happen, especially in 40, what was in with Majestic 12 and 48. And so it was, I mean, but that's the way our government is. Okay, that's the way our government is. It keeps, if they would just come on and say is, well, yeah, this actually happened, and hey, there are other there's zillions of planets out there in the universe, and we're not the only lone, uh, um, how should I say, colony, if you want to call us that, or whatever, So, anyways, that's that's what happened. So that's actually what happened in Roswell, and did I'm trying to think here, with technology. Did we actually collect a lot of a lot of things from the saucer crashes from Aztec, and also what we could find, or what they could find at Roswell, to take back to Wright Patterson and put it in hangar, and was believed is that the stuff that was taken from Aztec and also Roswell was taken to Wright Patterson and was put in hangar 18. Um, and then from there, again, it was transported to from to Area 51. Now, how Area 51 started out was the the military complex needed a secret location to do their business, you might say, in creating new types of aircraft, for an example. And you had so there was a guy, I can't remember his name, but anyways, he was a pilot, and he happened to go to Groom Lake, and he said that Groom Lake was just the right spot to what the military wanted to do, because it was so damn isolated out there in the desert. Who would ever know who the hell knew what was going on? Okay. I do believe, that Jack Parson um, uh, did some with the Jet Propulsion um, laboratory in California. Did some work out at Groom Lake. In fact, I do believe is that Parson, who was a protege of Aleister Crowley, the magician from the old OTO, and also from Thelema. Old I shouldn't say real. Going from the Golden Dawn to the OTO to Thelema. There we go. Was murdered because he knew too much of what was going out at Groom Lake. And the reason why I say this is that remember I told you in book 1 about mystery schools. Now this could put me in jeopardy. All right, this could put me in jeopardy. Is that there was a lot of talk. All right, there was a lot of talk about one secret that came from the mystery schools, and that was, well, I'm going to say it, alien presence. Is that the orders, OTO, the Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucians, even the Masons, all right, always believed as, and also Theosophy, all right. Each of those orders, schools, believed that there was always 3 secret chiefs that went to find somebody as to give knowledge. Okay, and you have to go back to my mystery school in book 1 of opening the door to the unknown, because I really don't want to get into that, but I will get into this. Is that, like I said, one of the secrets of each school was about with alien presence here on Earth. In fact, even Aleister Crowley had conversation who he called was his holy guardian angel, who was actually a gray that was giving him advice, you might say, to create the book of the law for the OTO and Thelema. Okay, like I said, I could be in a lot of jeopardy bringing this out. But even the Vatican goes back, even with the church going back to the 16th, well, I would say to the 12th, 13th century, even had knowledge of alien presence here. And that's the reason why they don't bring it out, because if they do, then all of a sudden they would not have the noose around the sheep's neck. Okay, is that the popes are the shepherds and the parishioners, or the church per se, is the sheep with the rope around the neck. All right, so that's right. So anyways, now you know a little bit more. Now you do know a little bit more about Roswell. So like I said, it's, to my way of thinking, it's a dead cell, and it's really not interesting. I mean, To my way of thinking, it's really not interesting anymore. Maybe when it was first brought up back in the early '70s, yeah, because a lot of people, um, especially in the UFO field, did not know about it unless they had friends or family that lived in Roswell that actually got one of the old newspaper articles that was written up within a 2 day period on the subject of the crash itself and what the government, especially the military, um, and the FBI had to say about it. So actually, like I said, the information was out there, but it just couldn't be releaked. It couldn't go anyplace because of the tightness as that the military did. Once Twining sent out the retrieval um, 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 personnel. Okay, so let me get now into. So what I decided to do was do a little research, again through magazines and books, and through Project Blue Book, and through Project Grunge, and also Project Flying Saucer, and also Sign, that I could get my hands on through certain people that I met um, when I became a member of UFOIC, and also by talking to other UFO organizations, you might say. And so what I did is that I just wanted to find out, because there was such a major flap in '47, is that just how many UFOs were spotted at bases across the United States. And so, again, the first one was actually well, not actually in Roswell, but going with Kenneth Arnold with the seven UFOs, flying saucers that he had dealings with near Mount Rainier. Okay. Anyway, so here we go. On July uh, on June 28th, at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. Again, July the 2nd in Roswell, the first Roswell sighting on July the 2nd, with Dan Wellmark, his wife, and his son Paul, while they were sitting at home. July the 3rd, the actual Roswell crash itself. And we can also say also at Aztec, New Mexico, was probably July the 3rd as well, because I think, again, is that there's a parallel between the crash in Roswell and also at Aztec. These were the two saucers that collide, boom, hit each other like that, okay? July the 4th at Sabel, Washington. Okay, yeah, at Sabel, Washington. And this is kind of funny. Is that the first photograph of an actual UFO was taken by a United States Coast Guard yeoman. He was believed, again, as the first person to take a photograph of a UFO as a white circular object, and that was on July the 4th. On July the 6th, We had Buckley Naval Air Station in Colorado. Again on July the 6th, Fairfield Sessions Air Force Base, California. July the 7th, again, Hickman Field, Hawaii. On July the 7th, again, at uh, Musnik Army Airfield, again in California. Again, on July the 8th, Musnik Army Air Base, California. Again, and these are different times. The one on July the 8th was like early in the, like around 9 o'clock in the morning, over at the Army Airfield. On July the 8th, it was around like I think around 11, some about quarter to 12. And then on July the 8th, they also had another sighting at a little in the afternoon. On August the 8th, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. I should say July the 8th, again in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. July the 11th, Elmdorf Air Base in Anchorage, Alaska. July the 12th. I wish I could read my writing when I do this. Let's see, that's Sard Point Naval Air Station in Washington. Washington's got some funny names. On July 24th, it's a Quantum Naval Air Station in Massachusetts. A lot of talking about Massachusetts. I wasn't going to bring this up until I was going to bring up with abductions and also close encounters for CE2s and CE3s. But but I felt that this was kind of interesting. In June of 19, let's see, okay, on June the 19th, 1947, in Worcester, Massachusetts. Like I said, Massachusetts also had a lot of sightings going in 47, 48, 49, 50. One of the first, how should I say this? Instead of reading this, I'm just going to tell my own words. Is that on June, on June the 19th, 1947, in Worcester, New York, is that a woman, unknown, said is that she saw as a UFO as a UFO was tree I don't know if it was like treetop, no, not treetop level, but close enough to where she said is that she saw like an alien presence, an individual that was dressed up like a naval officer, wearing that particular type of uniform. Like I said, she never did give her name, but it was written up. Oh yeah, okay. Was written up in the Telegram, in the Worcester Telegram. So I thought that when I was doing the research, I thought that was interesting for that. Okay, getting back to sightings again. Let's see, where are we? July 24th. Okay. Let's see. Do we have any more? Yes. Okay, just a few more. July the 29th at Hamilton Field in California. By the end of July, all right, by the end of July is when the government really put a clamp, tightened the screws, if um, as it were, to where reporters um, reporters who continue to ask questions about sightings is that there would be no more interviews by the information officer, um, and so because and here's the reason why is that because there was so many, because of 47 being a flat, what I call a flat year, was uh, is that they were just going to Army intelligence, the FBI. They were both go. I mean, Army intelligence and the FBI were going nuts because of all the sightings that was going on around the United States, especially as you just heard of all the bases that were buzzed. Okay. Um, I didn't even get, I'll be getting into 1940, 48, 49, where UFOs were buzzing white sands because of all the testing that was going on. Um, so I think is that um, um, because of World War II just ending for within that 2 year time period, and because also is that the atom we released the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, is that the people upstairs, you might say, were getting kind of curious about us and how far our technology had become, especially with the atomic bomb. Nobody knew. Gotta remember that nobody knew about the atomic bomb. Okay. Um, at that time, until there was a young kid, and I don't remember his name. That how should I say, was working with the scientists on the infusion of, and took a lot of the blueprints and stuff. And this is actual, took a lot of the blueprints and information to Russia, and that's how Russia got information on it. Um, and the kid thought he was doing, and the kid thought that he was actually doing a service, because he believed is that everybody should have the same amount of weaponry, whatever that type of weaponry was. I mean, that was his belief. And when he got older, is that he was teaching. I forget, was at either MIT or at Cal State. Just one of those places uh, well, it wasn't with the hydrogen, but it was still, with I'm trying to think how to say it. Atomic. Um, Not all right. I have to go that route. Working with atomic knowledge. Okay, so he never had any sort of. I can't remember the kid's name, but anyways, he didn't have any regrets of doing what actually he did. All right. Um, August 15th to the 20th, Rapid City, Rapid City um, Air Base. They had a lot of sightings between those dates of August the 15th to the 20th. And last but not least, September the 17th was Fort Richardson, Oklahoma. I mean, Arkansas, okay, at Fort Richards, Arkansas. So that was the major flap of 1947. Now, I think that I mentioned a couple of. I think that I mentioned a couple of projects. Um, there was you had project the before Blue Book came out back in the 50s. Is that you had again Project Flying Saucer, and Project Flying Saucer um, actually had a little bit about with Roswell, and also with the Aztec New Mexico crash. Then you had and then you had Project Sign, and Project Sign was just signed. Project Sign was just signed into being when they had their first major case, and that major case was with Jesse Martell, who died chasing a so-called chasing a so-called UFO, and in fact, that was the biggest thing that came about, especially with the military, was because of Martell having that so-called freak accident. And then you had Project Grunge that came out. So there was a lot of projects that came out. Um, but like I said, but Project Flying Saucer was actually the first project um, that actually came out. Then signed, then grunge, and then with Blue Book back in the '60s um, with the with a lot of the so-called sightings that were going on. But to tell you the truth, I think that there was more information given to at that time with April Aerial Phenomena Research Organization station in Colorado, with the Lorenzos. You had the first night, the true nightcap that came out. UFOIC. Um, Again, you didn't have MUFON. MUFON didn't come out until I think it was the late '60s, when April vanished, and the reason why Area Phenomena Research Organization slowly disappeared was it was just too much for the Lorenzos to keep not only information but um, um, I'm trying to think of the word. Working, with the dates, the times, and with other reports coming in, and when um, there was a major turn, with Nightcap back in '62, and in fact, the original Nightcap disappeared, and all of a sudden you had Nightcap after '62, and then Nightcap again. And I don't even think that Nightcap is still in existence. UFOIC, Walter Mershon died, the group, we all went our own separate ways and became individual investigators and researchers, and then all of a sudden MUFON came out. Like I said, I think in the 70s or 80s or some damn time like that. I never did trust MUFON though, and I'll get into that later on. So anyhow, so that's it. So that's what I got. So anyways, what I'm going to be talking about next, um, I'm trying to think if I want to go in that direction. I think I will. I'll be talking about 1948, 49, and 1950. I like to get into the 50s because then I want to start talking about people that were in that actually had close encounters, first, second, and through CE1 to CE4. Um, so. So the next chapter will be from 48, 49, and 50, and then and then chapter, let's see, 4, 5. 5 will be on the people that had a lot of dealings with UFOs, like I said, through CE1 to CE4, which is very interesting. Then talk about the 60s. The 70s, a little bit of the 70s, and then myself with the major experiences that I had, which is let me just put in, just give you what they said is what the appetite is that I was threatened with my life. That's all I'm saying. I mean, really threatened with my life. So, anyways, until then, I hope to get the next chapter out shortly for sightings and for 48, 49, and 50, and so I can get to chapter 5 with people. And a very interesting lot, you might say. Okay. Until then, bye.